Okay, so we've kind of gone over this stuff a little bit. We're going to go deeper into the boot sequence and kind of why we need to understand it and what some of these terms are today. And then we're going to kind of go back to the article and walk through the article to explain what you already read so that you understand it a little better. And like I said, the one thing I wanted to bring up on the class itself was that I really expected everyone to have this done by now. On the badges on the side that I put in there, if you haven't earned that yet, it means you haven't done everything that you should have already done. And it says only one recipient has received this badge. Does it show up on the side of your screen when you log in?
Yeah.
Show those? Okay, so Sharon's the only one who's gotten all the activities done to earn that badge, and I'm going to put other badges in as we move through Chapter 1 as well. I just haven't done that yet, but I expect you to have all those things done as well. The other thing is, in Moodle, if you didn't know, hopefully I remember to do it all the time. The one that's highlighted is the section that we're on right now. So anytime you come into Moodle, you should see one section highlighted and be able to just click on that one. You guys can't see the other ones yet anyway. So I want to talk about these terms and walk through the boot sequence on a computer and how it works. So let's talk about the terms first. So the first term we've got on here, and our objective today is to understand the boot process. So the first term we've got on here is BIOS. And directly out of your reading, BIOS stands for what? No one? Okay, right. It's the basic. My pen. Let me switch pens, see if it's that pen. Maybe it is. Basic. I don't know, something funky's going on with me. I switched my thing with somebody else. Input, look at that. Oh my gosh, this is gonna drive me crazy. Because that's no good. It is not reading me right. I did order a couple new ones, so hopefully when I get one of those, you'll have the entire text when it shows up. Let's see, is this the one with the corroded battery? Is the other one with the corroded battery? Oh, this one looks fine. Okay, basic input-output system. The BIOS, or basic input-output system, is the first program. It is software that runs on your computer. It runs on every computer as soon as you turn it on. Okay? This program is housed in ROM. Okay? It's housed in ROM. Does anybody know what ROM stands for? Wait, writing slower isn't helping. This one's better than the other one. Okay, ROM stands for read-only memory. What that means is that the BIOS program is on a ROM chip, programmed on your motherboard. Probably one of these two, couldn't tell you which one it is, but that's what these are right here. Okay, so it's a chip that's kind of like a flash drive that's sitting on your motherboard, but it doesn't get written to. It can only be read from. Okay, so that basic input-output system is a program sitting on your motherboard that every single time you start your computer, it runs. Okay, boy, that looks terrible, how I wrote basic input-output system. Okay, so BIOS lives on ROM. BIOS lives on ROM. BIOS lives on ROM. Said it 3 times, stuck my feet, be asking that question again. Because it can't be written, it's just a program that gets read every single and loaded every single time you start your computer. Okay? The POST stands for what? Power on self-test, okay? BIOS runs the POST, okay? BIOS runs the POST. That's one of the things that BIOS does when your computer starts up. And we're going to go through the whole sequence. I just want you to understand these terms before we start talking about the entire sequence, okay? Okay, So BIOS is a program that lives on ROM on your motherboard. Post is a test, the power on self test that BIOS performs. CMOS stands for something metal oxide something. I'm not going to ask you that question, okay? But CMOS RAM, okay, exists on your motherboard as well, okay? And RAM stands for random access memory. It's memory that we can write to, okay? BIOS saves data. It saves things in CMOS RAM because it can be written to, okay? So the CMOS RAM is on your motherboard. It's where BIOS writes stuff. Now, I just said it's RAM. And I told you before that RAM is volatile and the information in RAM goes away. Does that mean CMOS RAM is wiped out every single time we turn off our computer? It is not. Because there's always power on your computer motherboard. Where does the power come from? What? Where does the power come from? I'm showing you. May or may not be obvious. Power comes from somewhere. You can see the power where it's coming from. What I'm holding. What? Dick wants to say. He's afraid to say. He has the answer. What's the answer, Dick?
I don't know the answer.
Oh, you look like you know. You're like, he's like, I don't want to get it wrong, so I'm not going to say anything. No? No? Is there anything on this that holds power? Oh, batteries hold power, don't they? The whole purpose of that battery on your motherboard has one purpose. That's to hold the information in CMOS RAM. You take that battery out, it forgets everything that's on your computer because it's the only thing keeping power on your computer all the time. That's why your computer knows what time it is when it starts up, because CMOS RAM is saving and keeping the system clock running. And that's why when you turn it on, it doesn't think it's yesterday. Okay? Without that battery, I take that battery out, and it thinks it's the day and minute that this BIOS was programmed. It'll say, time not set, and it says it's 1999, or some date in the past. Okay? In the distant past, usually. Okay, usually 5 to 10 years ago.
Brian?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Dorothy.
Yes?
I think Savannah sent you an email for a password.
I'm sorry.
We need that so that QSC Adrian can get onto her desktop and get it reloaded.
Is he doing that right now? Because I'm in the middle of class right now. Do I need...
No, she's not doing it right now, but we cannot do our direct certification required by state till we get that.
Okay.
So if we can get it sometime today or tomorrow,
Well,
you can email it to her.
There is no password email. I'll have to log on.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, when they're ready to do it, then all you have to do is call me.
Oh, okay. So you want to give me a time that would be good?
Tomorrow, anytime.
Anytime tomorrow?
Yeah.
Okay.
I might just go ahead and make her an administrator on there so it doesn't even pop that up. So if she's logged on, and then I'll take that off. If I have time later on today, I'll do that.
Okay. Well, she doesn't even have it on her computer.
Well,
What they need to do is just
Right,
they need to call him and go to a meeting, and then he will put
Right.
the password in.
Right.
So, okay.
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 Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, so anyways, that's what the battery does. The battery allows CMOS RAM to stay on your computer because RAM is volatile, information in RAM goes away, so it has to have power even when we unplug it. The only way that happens is it's called the CMOS battery because it holds the RAM information in the CMOS RAM, okay? Every single computer has a CMOS battery. Your laptop has a CMOS battery. It looks a little bit different than this. Most of them are CR2042 batteries like this one. Why do you know that number, Mr. Poole? Because I had to buy them. It's stuck in my brain. I don't know why. But that battery, if it goes bad, is why when you turn on your computer sometimes, it says date and time not set. Obviously, the date and time was set. Why does it not remember? It doesn't remember because this battery has gone bad. Okay? And when we scavenge motherboards, we pull those batteries out. I have a whole bag of them because they usually last forever. And then occasionally we get a batch that didn't last at all. Okay, they're not expensive. They're like $2 a piece at Walmart. Okay, so those are the terms that we need to know, our basic terms. Which pin was the good pin? I don't know. I guess I'll find out. Okay, so let's go through, not that one, maybe not that one, the boot sequence and how a computer boots, and then we're going to go and play with some BIOS programs over in the elementary school, which we have more than enough time to. Okay, so the first thing we do when we go to turn on our computer is what? We push the power button, okay? And things happen when we push the power button. And that'd be crazy. Go away. When we push the power. Okay. The first thing the book says it does is what? Nope. It's the first thing it does. That's way down. That's way down the line. Okay? I push the power. This wire on here runs directly to the motherboard, by the way. Okay? And if this wire that goes from here to there is disconnected, you'll never turn on your computer. Or if it's connected incorrectly. Okay? So when I push that button to start the computer, it immediately sends a signal to the power supply, or the PSU, the power supply unit. Okay? So it sends a signal to the power supply unit, and if that signal, so when I push this button, it sends a signal to the power supply unit, and the power supply unit says, okay, I'm going to turn on now, and then it keeps sending reset signals until the power supply unit is got a good power signal. So you don't know, it happens probably thousands of times in the second while you're pulling your finger away from that button, but the power supply gets a signal that says turn on, start giving me power, and then it goes, okay, I'm turning on, and then the motherboard keeps going reset, 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 and then it's got good power, and then all of a sudden it says, okay, we can start up now, boys, when it knows that it's got a good power signal. So when good power, it proceeds, okay? Only when it's got a good power signal. So right away, if I push my button and nothing happens, there's no whirling fans, there's no nothing, what is my first thing that I think about that might be bad? What? Where'd you get that from? Okay, the first thing that I think might be bad in my computer would maybe make me think it's the power supply. Because before it does anything, it has to know it's got a good power supply. Doesn't mean it is, but my point that I'm making is that the reason we need to know the boot sequence and how everything interacts is because if I've got a PC that I push the power button and nothing happens, I need to know what those inputs and things are. And you saw how fast I heard that beep. I talked about that in your video. You get a beep. Lots of things just happened before that beep. It just happened really, really, really fast. Okay, that was when you heard the beep, it's done the power on self-test. The CPU is initialized, which is the next thing that happens. Okay, so the next thing is initializes. And the first thing it does, because the CPU is what's running it, is it loads BIOS. Okay? So in the second that I pushed that, it did a power on self test. Okay, or I'm sorry, it checked the power, made sure the power was good, then initialized the CPU, loaded the BIOS, and what's the first thing the BIOS does when it loads? Just said the answer to my question. It runs the power on self-test, okay? So as soon as the BIOS loads, the first thing it does, it runs the power on self-test, okay? And when I heard that beep, that was the power on self-test is done. So how long does that take? I'll do it again. It's turned off. Watch my finger. Pretty dang fast, okay? In that amount of time, it's already gone around the whole motherboard and all the components and done a basic test of, is everybody okay? Yes. Because if somebody wasn't, at that point I'd start getting a beep, 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 or some kind of indication depending on the motherboard, okay? So it does a power on self-test. It does a basic, very basic test of your CPU. Boy, this is really driving. I need to go steal my something back. I don't know whether it's my pen or my bar, but now I give it to somebody else. Okay, our CPU, our memory, and all attached components. Now, I say all, not really all. It's all that BIOS knows about. There are some things that BIOS has no idea what they are, and it just goes, BIOS does not know what my MIMI is. Okay, now it goes around USB, and it does check for things like a keyboard and a mouse. My son's in the hospital. Hey, hon, what's up? Keep switching pins on myself. Some audio feedback that the thing is working fine. Okay, so it runs that power on self-test. That's the first thing that BIOS is going to do. And then once BIOS knows that everything seems to be working fine, the next thing it does is it goes to that CMOS RAM and it's already, I should say, it's already kind of gone to CMOS RAM, because one of the things it does in this power on self-test is it runs around the motherboard and looks for stuff that's connected. And when we go into BIOS, we save things that are there. It goes and it finds what kind of hard drive you have and how much memory you have, and it saves all that information, that configuration information, in that CMOS. And that CMOS RAM, okay? So that stuff is saved there, and if it's already there, the boot sequence is very fast. If it's not there, the boot sequence is slow. So if you take out the battery from your computer and then put it back in, and it's forgotten everything that's in your computer, the boot sequence takes longer, because now it's going, oh, I found a hard drive, and it sets up how the hard drive is going to talk, and then it saves it in CMOS RAM. And then it goes and finds memory, and it says, okay, I've got this much memory, and it saves that configuration information in CMOS RAM. The next thing it does after it saves that configuration is it goes to CMOS RAM and says, how do you want me to boot? You being you, have gone into the BIOS at some point and saved a boot order in there, okay? Oh my Lord. It's like this one is intermittently working. Oh, this is the one with the stuff in the bottom. I got it. Let me see if I have another pen altogether. Members drop these all the time, and then when they don't work, they bring them down here, and I end up trying to make them work. Okay, so it checks the boot order. Let's see if this one works. Or, oh yay, I need to hide this one. Okay, so it checks for a boot order. And what that's saying is, what order does it want to look for things to boot from? Okay, so we have options, and these are all primary or secondary storage. What? Secondary. They're all secondary because it's where we're booting from. So it's going to go through all of our secondary storage devices that it finds. I think I just spelled that wrong because I couldn't see what I was writing, so pretend that says storage. It goes through all of our secondary storage devices. On your laptop, what are our secondary storage devices? Okay, so we've got a hard drive. What else we got? Yeah, okay, so what is it? Okay, so we've got, in the case of those, we've got a DVD. What else do we have available to us as secondary storage devices on your laptop? May not be in it right now, just like there's not a DVD in it right now. But what are other options that we have? Okay, we have flash drives, right? And just because there's not a flash drive in it doesn't mean it's not a device, okay? So I'm going to say USB, USB drives, because those are boot devices just like your CD-ROM. It may or may not be in the computer at the time, okay? So those are our secondary storage devices that we could have on our laptop. So we have to tell BIOS what the order is that it's supposed to look at, and we save that. So there, by the way, there's a couple other things. They're not secondary storage devices, but they kind of are. Okay. We also have the ability to boot to NIC, which means it's going to a secondary storage device somewhere else on the internet. Okay. That's one of our options too. It's still kind of secondary storage, just like you can save stuff to a hard drive that's in a server way across town, or you can save one that's out in California at Google through the internet. You can also boot your computer, which is how we do a lot of times, through the internet. So that's kind of what gray area was secondary storage, but that's one of the boot devices that we can select. So we have to tell BIOS what our order is, okay? So on your computers, just so you know, we have it set to go to the hard drive first, and we said don't check there, don't check there, don't check there. Okay, is what we have on your computers. Okay? Let's see if I can go back and undo that. On most computers in the school, we have it go to the network card first, and then to the DVD, and then to the hard drive. That is our default boot order: network card, CD-ROM, hard drive. Okay. The only reason we have it go straight to the hard drive for you guys, it's a security thing, and it makes it boot faster. Okay. All the other PCs start up at a specific time in the morning automatically. I don't have to come in and turn this PC on. It just turns on at 6 a.m. So if it takes 10 seconds more to boot, do it. Does anybody see that? No. But you guys are turning your laptops on and off all day long, so there's no reason for it to go to these other devices. Because what it does is it goes there, BIOS says, oh, you want me to go to the NIC? Okay, I'm going to the NIC. Anybody there? Anybody there? Anybody there? No, nobody's there. Okay, so I'm going to go to the DVD. Anybody there? Anybody there? Anybody there? No? Okay, now I'll go to the hard drive. So it extends your boot time by a couple seconds. Is it a ton? No, maybe it changes it by 3 to 5 seconds. But why do you guys need to wait that 3 to 5 seconds when all you're ever going to boot to is the hard drive? Okay, so yours just go hard drive. It goes straight there. It says, is anybody there? And yes, there's somebody there, and it starts to boot. Okay, so that's what it does. It checks the boot order. It goes through the devices in the order that you set up and save. And then when it finds what it's going to boot from, it finds the operating system. It basically hands over control to the operating system, and it tells the operating system, this is what I've got for you so far. Okay, so the operating system starts to load. BIOS kind of hands off the config data to the OS, and then finally, when it's all done, we see the GUI. It's the last thing that happens. The last thing that happens is we see Windows. And in between this step, between the iOS starting and us seeing the GUI, in here we get, and this is really chapter 2, we get drivers to load. Okay. Chapter 2, we're going to talk a lot more about drivers. But drivers are little pieces of software. They're little tiny pieces of software that allow the operating system to use hardware. Okay? It's a program like that lets your video work, or lets your USB drive work, or lets your DVD work. Drivers are small pieces of software, and those load as the operating system is loading before we see the GUI. Okay? And I let you know that because if I push this button, we're going to go through the whole BIOS sequence. Okay? Can everybody see the screen? Okay, it happens pretty fast. So I push the button, it's done the power on sales test, it's done the beep. Then the BIOS is going to continue, and we're going to see the BIOS coming up even further. Okay, so the BIOS is loading. It's already done the power on self test. Now it's going to the network card to see right now if there's, because it's set to go to the NIC first, so it's going to the network card and it's going out to the network to see if there's an operating system available that it should load to. And there is. It's going to see FOG, which is what it's doing right now. This is loading to FOG, our online operating system. But FOG said, I got nothing for you. Go ahead and go to the hard drive. So now it just went to the hard drive. And now it's loading the drivers for Windows, and it's already done. Okay, it's pretty fast. It's got a solid state drive, just like yours has a solid state drive, but this is faster than your computer. It's pretty quick. Okay. So in that little time we saw that Windows screen, drivers were loading, and then all of a sudden, boop, it's done, and we get the GUI right here, and we can log on. Okay. If during that time, sometimes you see the Windows little circle going around while it's loading drivers. Sometimes the window will just disappear and it'll go black. Usually what it means is there was a failure in some driver. BIOS handed off to the operating system. We saw Windows for a second, and then our computer died. Okay? Which almost always means that there's a driver issue, some small program that the operating system was trying to run to make hardware work failed, and we never got the GUI. Okay, all those things happen in that 5 seconds from pushing the button. Okay. Now, this is a really fast BIOS, by the way. Some BIOSes are not this fast. The E6510, which is the one after this one, which is an i5 processor. It's really fast PC. The BIOS is a pig. It takes like 30 seconds for the BIOS to load. Why? I have no idea. It's ridiculous. We tried putting the newest version on to try to get it to run faster. Doesn't matter. It's really, really slow. This BIOS, as you can see, is a really, really quick BIOS. And it's a pretty fast boot. Okay? People think the iPad is a really slow booting operating system, but it never gets shut off. That's why people think, oh, iPads are really fast. No, they're not. You do a full shutdown on an iPad and a full startup, an iPad takes longer to start than your Windows laptop does, but you never turn it off, right? You just hit the little button and the screen goes off, and you hit the little button and the screen comes on. Nobody turned on and turned off an iPad, okay? You do it occasionally, but not very often, but it goes through the same kind of boot sequence. When you see the little Apple doing its thing, it's loading BIOS. It's loading BIOS and then loading the operating system, okay? It's just that it's optimized to go to sleep. Every once in a while, iPad will mess up and you have to turn it off all the way and turn it back on, just like anything else, okay? Okay, so that's the sequence. Now, what does BIOS look like? Okay, it's a program that you can get into, and there are different ways to get into that program. Okay, so we're going to go and we're going to enter BIOS and look at them. Okay, now first of all, BIOS is a program written by a company. How many companies? About 15 different companies. Do they all look the same? Absolutely not. In fact, every different Dell you look at, that is close, but they don't look the same at all. Okay, so we're going to get into this BIOS, or I'm going to get into this BIOS. Now, to enter BIOS, there's a number of keys. This is a test question, by the way. Generally, it's the F1, the F2, or the delete key. Unless you're HP, because they like the F10 key that nobody else uses other than HP. I don't know why. Okay, they're the only one. Everybody else sticks to F1, F2, or delete, and Dell likes the F2 key. Okay, so if you're in a Dell computer, 99% of the time, if you just sit here tapping the F2 key, you're going to get into BIOS. I'm not saying all the time. I'd be lying if it was all the time. But most of the time, all I'm doing is sitting here and tapping F2. Okay? Yes? I'm sorry, I'm in class. Is this really important right now?
I'll call back. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I missed it. I think I missed it. Either that or I was hitting it too much. Because I did not get into BIOS. Dang it. Let's try it again. Usually it happens when you see the Dell screen, so we'll see. So I see the Dell screen, I hit F2, I should be going into BIOS right now. Oh, there we go. Okay. It says preparing to enter setup, and then I'm going to go into the BIOS screen. Okay, so usually you get some kind of screen before you go to BIOS. Now this is totally a non-Dell BIOS. This Dell uses a BIOS from American Microtrends or Megatrends, okay? But some of them, like yours, is a very specific Dell BIOS. The Dell came up with, and it looks like Dell, but they still entered to it through F2. Okay, so what I do a lot of times, we're going to put that one key, there we go. What I do a lot of times when I come up to a computer and I want to get into BIOS, and I'm not quite sure, because I haven't used this one before, I would just sit there going over the F1, F2, and delete key, and I'll go delete, F1, I'll just be sitting there like that. Nice and slow, not too fast. If I do it too fast, it thinks it's a keyboard error, so you don't want to do it too fast. So I just kind of go, and then all of a sudden I see the BIOS go. Okay. So, and I know that if it's an HP, because they're screwy, they use the F10, which is nowhere near any of the other keys that most people use. I don't know why. And it's not even every HP. So when I ask the question, what keys are usually used to enter BIOS, it's F1, F2, and delete. Those three are the most common ones. Okay. Now, I'm in BIOS on this computer. I would love to say they all look like this, but they don't. Every single one of them is different. And we are not going to have time, because I took that phone call, to run over and go to the elementary school today. And well, here's what we're going to do. Because they don't have passwords on them, and your guys' all do, we're going to each grab a netbook, or one of these netbooks, and we're going to use them. So everybody come here and get a netbook. And I don't think these are password protected, so everybody grab one, and we're going to turn them on, and we're going to hit F2 to enter in the BIOS to look at this one particular BIOS. So when I hit the power button, I'm going to have my other finger on the F2, and as soon as I see Dell, I'm going to start hitting the F2 key, and I go straight into BIOS. This BIOS is, by the way, very similar to the one on the student laptops, okay? So if you missed the Dell key, you already missed it, hit the power, turn it off, you've already missed it, okay? Too late. Okay, so hit that and watch. As soon as you see Dell, start tapping F2, okay? There you go, you went right into it. Okay, so this is the setup. Is everybody in this? Okay, so this is, and when I said it's a Dell one, see, it has a big, huge Dell symbol. This Dell, which is still a Dell, uses a different BIOS, okay? This is pretty similar to what Dell ones look like. Okay, so did I just hit escape? I hit escape. Ignore it. Okay, so as I look at it, you can see the settings down the left-hand side. If I go down to the first one, it says system information. It's going to tell me what the BIOS knows about the system. So go down, just down arrow one to system information. So it says what the BIOS version is. Mine's on A4. All you guys are on the same one. And there are ways to update BIOS. It says what the service tag number is, then I go down, it says how much memory did it find in this netbook. Mine has 2 gig RAM, or 2048 meg of RAM, which is 2 gig, okay? It says how fast the memory is, 533 megahertz, which is really, really, really slow by today's standards, about 3 to 4 times slower than everything you guys have that we're using around the school today. And if I go down even further on that screen, it says what memory is in each slot, where it says DIMM A size, DIMM B size. It's saying, on mine at least, that there's a 1024 meg or a 1 gig stick in one slot, and there's a 1 gig stick in the other slot. Has everybody got about the same thing? Okay. as I scroll down even further on that same page, the scroll's on the left-hand side, or I'm sorry, the right-hand side, it says what kind of hard drive it found in this computer. It says mine says it found an 80 gig hard drive, and then it goes on to say what kind of video controller, what kind of audio controller, all that information BIOS found out when it was doing the power on self-test, and it was going around your motherboard and it said, this is what I got, this is what I got, this is what I got. Okay. You can't change those things. These things that are in system information, BIOS just read, so that's not one of the things I can change. If I go down 2 tabs over here, I can click on where it says boot sequence. Okay? And when I go to boot sequence, that's where I can enable and disable devices and say what order that it's going in. And right now, mine says onboard NIC and then internal hard drive. Okay? And we want to leave them that way so we can image them pretty easily. But you can see that I also have the ability to pick diskette drive, USB storage, and CD-ROM. I didn't mention diskette drive on that one, although that's still one of the options. You could use a floppy drive is what it's saying. Now this doesn't have floppy drive on it, but I have external ones over there that theoretically, if we were still using floppies for anything, we could. Now, this is where when I ask you the question, who sets the boot order, the answer is you do. Because you could reset the boot order and the apply isn't there right now because I haven't changed anything. But if I was to change the boot order on this, then all of a sudden the apply button is there. And when I apply, I'm saving that boot order. I'm going to put it back the way it was. Also, that's where I can go down 1 tab and set what the date and time is. The only reason it continues to remember the date and time, which can be off a little bit, I don't know, but it still thinks it's August 25th. The only reason it remembers that is because that CMOS battery that holds information in the CMOS RAM. There's other tabs down here that we can also set. Some of those things are changeable and some of them are not. Under system configuration, one of the things that's there says integrated NIC. If you open that up, it has some options. It should say enabled with PXE. That means we can boot to the network. Okay? But all these things are going to look different on different on every single BIOS. Okay? We're not going to save these. We're going to go ahead and just turn them off. I know you guys got to get to class. Next class, I promise we'll spend a little more time on BIOS before we move to anything else. Our plan was to go down to the elementary school lab and play with BIOS down there, and to use these anyways, so I'll get them put away. But I want you guys to have a chance to play with a couple different BIOSes. Because they're all so different, you kind of just have to get used to, I have to look to find stuff, because it's not like you can go, okay, this is how you use BIOS, because they're all different. Okay, I'll see you guys, what is today? Monday. This is Monday. I'll see you guys Monday. If you haven't read and taken notes on all the part of that book, because there's no more part of that book that's going to happen, Monday, after we do the BIOS thing, we're going to continue on with the discussion, which is really to review a lot of that stuff and to hit some points that I haven't hit before. And then Wednesday, probably, you guys are going to have the Chapter 1 test so we can move on with the majority of the course. Okay? It'll depend on what we all get done on Monday, but most likely Wednesday will be the Chapter test. So you want to make sure you've read that and you have notes on the stuff that you've already read. Okay? See you guys Monday.